water, and earth, time and space essentially becomes an elemental playground for the enjoyment and for the experiencing of the Creator.
So is it a coincidence? Well, we know it's no such thing as a coincidence. You're going to be the keynote speaker at the conference. Are you going to speak on the whole idea of Flight 370 may have entered into a certain vortex or a certain, i.e., triangle or energy vortex, or are you going to speak on that?
No, it's not really necessary for us to speak on that, because I could run down pretty much what, all the information and feedback that I've had on Flight 397. Flight 397 is no big mystery. A lot of the brothers and sisters in the occult metaphysical community would want something like that to happen, but technology is out there to go dark and not be seen. But, I can give you a rundown. I don't know how long we got. I can give you a rundown.
Please do.
Okay,
please.
No, we'll make time. We have time.
Well, let me run it down this way.
Yeah.
It'll take a few minutes, but I put together a little bit of a mosaic to explain to some brothers and sisters who are in my class what happened. So I guess I can actually give that to, the brothers and sisters out there. Well, let's just go down the line. First of all, the pilots of that plane, they all say what may have been suicide. No, it wasn't any suicide. The pilots never sent any mayday or distress signals. That was the key thing right there. Immediately, if there was any problems, there's a switch, boom. There's always a monitoring of the cockpit between the talking between the pilot and the co-pilot and the crew members. There would have been some kind of alert if there was something wrong, but there was none. The transponders, those things that actually keep a continual link with the outside world, they were turned off. And the only way they could be turned off, as I will repeat again, is if they reached up in between themselves, right there, right above their heads, and switched it off. That's the easiest way. Now, here's the thing, and it begins to develop into maybe some conspiracies, and I've taken some pieces from different places, and it makes sense to me. So I'm going to give it to you as I heard it and as I've seen it. Now, the 777, which is what this Flight 397 is equipped with something called Aircraft Communications Addressing and Reporting System, something called ACARS. Right? The ACARS system is primarily developed to automatically detect and report changes to what they call the four major flight phases, and they call it the OOI, or the triple OI. What does that mean? It means out of the gate, off the ground, on the ground, into the gate. So what there is a pattern for every one of the planes that are to go from one destination to the next, and they are called the triple OIs. Did it follow that pattern? Well, here's what happens. Now, these phases that we are talking about, the triple O and the I, are determined by algorithms that tap into the aircraft sensors. Now, it is difficult to turn off this system. Why? Because it's located it's in an electronics bay under the cockpit. So they could not turn off this aircraft communications address and reporting system unless someone else knew how to turn it off, and did. Now, the computers there on the plane and on the ground are linked to a satellite operated from London called Inmarsat, INMARSAT, Inmarsat. Now, a few hours after all other communications had stopped, the airplane was sending a ping recording its presence to the satellite. Now, I'm giving you all the technical jargon that had come out, but I want to show you where that's leading. Now, primary surveillance radar, which is called a PSR, is called a skin paint radar. And that's what they use when you see on the weather forecast when they give you this beautiful kind of color, maybe red, maybe pink, green, and it kind of blankets to tell you what is in the immediate area when they're giving you the weather. That's what that's called. It's called a skin paint radar. It picked up nothing in that area. Now, turning off the transponders is a simple thing. It's a step that the crew can do. All right? Now, if it was supposedly, as they say, hijacked or skyjacked, why is it that the skyjackers deterred the plane so that it went dark and then made no kind of demands? There was no demands anywhere for it. If it was skyjacking, people want demands. I'm not going to blow a plane up and not let nobody know about it. If I got an agenda, I want everybody to know it's me. Okay?
Right.
Now, these people got, and from what I understand, and this is off the cuff, they have like maybe 58 to 60 ships that's been out there, and at least 50 aircraft are looking for this plane in the general area it supposedly disappeared. Could you imagine? The skies just over the place where it is caked with air traffic and sea traffic looking for this. But here's what the deal is. Military radar that was picking up and following this suggested that the plane was deliberately flown towards the Andaman Islands. Okay? Now, on board this plane was said to be 20 employees of a major tech giant called Freescale Semiconductor, which is based in Austin, Texas, and it designs embedded hardware, microprocessors, microcontrollers, and sensors. Now, the consortium said to own the majority shares of Freescale, namely the Blackstone Group and the Carlyle Group. These are run by Lord Jacob Rothschild, who is a member of the International Advisory Board at Blackstone. Now, you know the Carlyle Group is one of the biggest defense contractors, and who's in there? The Bushes and the Bin Laden groups. So now here it gets a little bit sicker. Who was on board? What's going on that would make this plane go dark all of a sudden? Well, here's the other part of it. Now, there's an NGO, what you call a non-governmental organization. Listen carefully, family. It's called the Kuala Lumpur War Crimes Tribunal, and it's located in Malaysia. All right? Now, it was established in 2007 by the former Prime Minister. I think his name was Mahathir Mohamad. But they just recently conducted a tribunal in November of 2013 charging Israel with war crimes.
Wow.
They listened to extensive testimonies from people. I mean, they had like 11 witnesses and viewed copious documentary evidence about Israel's atrocities. And in the end, they found the state of Israel guilty of genocide, citing the eyewitnesses' accounts of the crimes against the Palestinians and the Lebanese refugee camps over at Sabra and Shatila in 1982, and in Jenin and Nablus in 2002, as well as this thing that they conducted called Operation Cast Lead, which killed off at least 1,400 of the people. They were found guilty. Now, one of these judges, by his name, I think his name was Labin Yunis or something like that, and he said that although their war crimes tribunal had no enforcement powers, they would turn their findings over to the chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, as well as to the United Nations and to the Security Council. Now, if that was going to happen, why do you think all of a sudden the Malaysian, where again the actual crimes, the tribunal crimes that were found guilty, that found Israel guilty, why would they all of a sudden now disappear an entire airline with the Chinese on board, or at least bring attention and bad name, or to do something as such to a Malaysian airline? All right? Now, let's get back on board again. The flight took off from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. It was scheduled to fly to Beijing, China. It had 227 passengers, I believe, on board from 15 different countries, most of whom were the Chinese, and they had 12 crew members. Now, during its time on the ground, listen carefully, Flight 370 was said to have picked up some strange cargo, whose manifest was traced back to the Republic of the Seychelles. The cargo was offloaded from the United States container-carrying ship named MV Maersk Alabama and loaded onto a Dubai Emirates flight bound for Kuala Lumpur Airport, where it was loaded onto Flight 370. Now, these guys, a guy's name, this is Russian intelligence now speaking on this, and taking this based upon what Russian intelligence has said that there were these two guys who were trained U.S. Navy SEALs assigned to protect that cargo. I think the names were Kennedy and Reynolds. And they, strangely enough, right after loading it on and having been guarded, were found dead. Now, these guys, Kennedy and Reynolds, were said to have been employed employed by a Virginia-based maritime security firm called Trident Group. Now, the Trident Group is staffed with ex-Navy SEALs and U.S. Naval Surface Warfare officers. Now, this group from out of Trident, out of Virginia, this group is tasked with protecting vital transfers of both atomic and biological materials around the entire world. Now, because of the nature of the cargo that was on board 370, Moscow's intelligence notified Chinese Ministry of State because that's where the plane was headed. And so the China Ministry of State Security said, don't worry about it, we got it, we'll handle it. Whatever's on board, we're going to check it out, and we're going to see what this is about. Boom. Right before the plane, after the plane takes off, it makes a bank left and then disappears. Why? How did it disappear? Well, it was supposed to, as soon as the plane took off and it was supposed to go to China, what happened was China the intelligence must have found out what the cargo was and diverted the plane to Haikou International Airport. Okay? So now, they were going to the Hainan Islands. They diverted it. But right before it was to head to the new destination, Russian intelligence picked up the Sirius Bank. They were tracking the plane, and they were tracked by something called the Voiska Vostushnovska, and I'm trying to deal with Russian here, Kosmiskoy Obrinroy, or Oboroin, or Oboroni, or what they call the VKO satellite and radar tracking system. And what the VKO tracked was that the plane banked and went over the Indian Ocean and flew for 2,142 miles and landed at Diego Garcia, a naval base, a U.S. naval base on that island. Okay, this is like a stop-off point, but this is where the secret naval base was. And the plane supposedly ended up there. Now, how the plane suddenly diverted was said to have been under the control of a sophisticated naval intelligence technology. It's conjectured that the plane was remote skyjacked because Flight 370, being a Boeing 777-200ER aircraft design, is equipped with something called an FDW, or fly-by-wire system. Now, this fly-by-wire system replaces conventional manual flight controls of an aircraft with an electronic interface that allows the pilot to be circumvented in his control, and it to be flown like a drone.
Wow.
Okay? Now, even though the plane can be commandeered and flown remotely, however, the communication system can't be shut down remotely, and that's what was going on. They knew that had to be shut down manually because it was shut down at 107. The data reporting system was shut down at 107, and again, the flight transponder was shut down at 1:21 a.m. So, interestingly enough, Diego Garcia, or Atoll, here's what happens, and this is what rounds it out. Right after, within 24 hours of the disappearance of this airplane, 4 flights containing U.S. military and top disease control, Centers for Disease Control and Chinese Centers for Disease Control, lit out towards Diego Garcia. And that's the last we heard of that. So now, what is it that the CDC from here in the United States, sending out 4 planes along with the Chinese CDC, are heading to Diego Garcia? Why? What was on that cargo?
And where are those people?
So that's, pulling from all the different places that I'm just telling people that, yeah, we could have gone into a wormhole, or aliens could have taken it up into the mothership, or they could have taken it down into the water, because we do have what I call the aquaterrestrials. It could have been blown out of the sky. It could have been zapped by laser. But the first thing we must do when we are investigating is to deal with the fundamental abilities of the U.S. government, as well as the world government, and the technology they have in their hands to play games with our heads. And let me tell you, special effects in movies have become exquisite. I swear to God, I know that somebody can go up and shake a hand of a Tyrannosaurus